there was something so valuable about what happened when one became a mother. For me, it was the most liberating thing that ever happened to me. Liberating because the demands that children make are not the demands of a normal other. The children's demands on me were things that nobody ever asked me to do. To be a good manager, to have a sense of humor, to deliver something that somebody could use. And they were not interested in all the things that other people were interested in, like what I was wearing or if I was sensual. Somehow, all of the baggage that I had accumulated as a person about what was valuable just fell away. I could not only be me, whatever that was, but somebody actually needed me to be that. If you listen to your children, somehow you are able to free yourself from baggage and vanity and all sorts of things and deliver a better self, one that you like. The person that was in me that I liked best was the one my children seemed to want. From Toni Morrison and Motherhood, A Politics of the Heart. Welcome to the Doin Motherhood Podcast, where we talk all things Black mothers today. So this is our short form episode, the critical analysis that accompanies our episode about maternal mental health. And we are now at the end of May. So I want to wrap this conversation up in a way that helps us delve a little bit deeper into what it looks like when we don't have our mental health balanced, how it affects mothers, how it affects their children. And we're going to use two different mediums today, as I explained before. So our medias today are the book I'm listening to right now. I'm currently listening to the book, What Happened to You, which is a conversation on trauma and resilience. And it's a conversation between Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey. And the second media that we're going to be taking a look at today is Toni Morrison's documentary, The Pieces I Am. And so that's going to just help us get a little bit deeper into what it looks like when our mental health is not balanced. Starting with what happened to you. So what I really like about this book is that what happened to you is a reframe of the question that a lot of people who struggle with mental health imbalance is, what's wrong with me? Or they're hearing from other people ask them, what is wrong with you? And this conversation takes a look, and it gets a little scientific, but it takes a more of a holistic approach at looking at what happens when people have those mental health imbalances that are in no way, shape, or form their own fault, if you will. And so in this particular book, the story that I would like to really kind of look at is a conversation that they have about Dr. Perry when he was younger and starting out as a psychologist and a researcher. He was involved with a family in which the mother had been, she had a long history of being abused, and she had become a child in the foster care system, a child that was neglected, a child that she did not see much love. And so as she grew older, she started to use drugs to help, self-medicate and numb her way through life. She has a daughter of her own. And then, of course, the system gets involved. And that's how Dr. Perry came in to work with them. And so one specific incident that he shares in the story, I just want to point out, is that we often tell women, or we often tell people, if you're having a hard time, if you're struggling, reach out, get help, right? And so this is a woman who was in a system that is supposed to help. But what he found was that as her daughter had been taken from her because she was not healthy. And so she was having to have supervised visits with her daughter. And that's how Dr. P came in. And the woman whose home the daughter was in was also a part of this conversation, right? And so what Dr. Perry observed in this is that the colleagues of his that were supposed to be, so we're talking about the social workers and we're talking about the case managers, he noted how they were more willing to criminalize the mother for her attempts. And maybe her attempts were a little off base. They weren't the healthiest attempts to show love to her daughter. But as he pointed out, that it was the only way she knew to give love. So apparently the daughter was diabetic, and when the caseworkers saw that the mother was bringing candy to her, rather than teaching her why that was detrimental and not healthy to her daughter, they wanted to just punish her. And so the foster mother who was taking care of the daughter had to step in and advocate for this young mother and say, if you want her to learn how to love, we have to show her love. And it's such a subtle but powerful message that she gives there, because again, we're talking about someone who already has some mental health imbalances. She grew up in a system that did not allow her to be mentally healthy, stable, safe, right? And so now her life does not look like it's mentally stable and safe. And she has a daughter that she's been having a difficult time taking care of, but she's making the effort. And if these are the people who are charged with helping her find that mental balance or that mental health balance, they're not doing the job. They end up failing the entire family if they don't take an approach that teaches her rather than punish her. And so again, just in thinking about, and again, we hear the story of this mother, this is what she came into as a child herself, not having that. And so we can only imagine, and I don't know her backstory completely, but we can only imagine that the people who were in charge of her care were probably not balanced. You know, they probably didn't have a balanced mental health life. And so this becomes a cycle that's just perpetuated and perpetuated and perpetuated. And so we talk about generational curses. We talk about those generational patterns or those family patterns that we need to break. And most of the time we find that that is all wrapped up in how mentally healthy we are or can be. I bring us to the piece by Toni Morrison, her documentary, The Pieces I Am, where she speaks specifically to being a single parent. And there's an interview where she is asked by a journalist, he noted that her husband divorced and left, and that she was left to take care of 2 children alone. And I have to say that I was so shocked at this moment in the documentary because for one, I just really didn't think that there would be a way that I would directly identify with Toni Morrison outside of like her writing, right? But when he asked, how was it taking care of 2 children on your own? And her response was, it was the worst. It was horrible. It was terrible, very hard. And then he went on to ask her, well, how did you get help, or how did you get through it? And she said, my family, my brothers, my mother. She lists all these family members that had to help her. And she says, and the piece that spoke out to me the most was, you need everybody you know. And even when she had that, she says, it was still very difficult. And so again, when we're not having these conversations, that check in with mothers far beyond that first year, that check in with mothers far beyond that, postpartum period, that's, whether you're thinking of the postpartum period as the first 3 months or you stretch it out to the year. If we're not going beyond that, if we're not doing the work and making the effort to ensure that mothers of every stage, whether their children are school age, whether their children are high schoolers, whether their children have gone off to college and have moved on, all of what the mother is experiencing. So if she is off balance, if she is depressed, if she is full of anxiety, if she is overwhelmed and swamped, that is what affects these children. And we want to be the ones to break that cycle. We want to be the ones to break that cycle so that our children can be just a little bit freer. And then generation by generation, everyone is getting healthier and healthier and healthier, and we're not seeing those same patterns. And we also I would like our society to get to a point where somebody's taking care of the mothers. The mothers are mothering everybody. Who's mothering the mothers? So I hope that you will employ some of the tips that we talked about in the last segment. And, if there's something that you would like to share in the conversation, again, join us over on Instagram at Doin_Motherhood_podcast. We'd love to hear from you. And please like, subscribe, follow, leave us a comment and a review. We appreciate you for being here. Thank you.